Can't believe it's February 1st already, but it is. We have a few folks here today, which I will go ahead and call out, and we will get started. So we will start with, well, I'm not going to go in any order. I'm just going to go in the order that people are on my screen. So that's, we have Minority Leader Mark Zdanowicz. We have Deb Poulin, Councillor Deb Poulin, Town Manager Rick Ledwith, Public Works Director John Phillips, Catherine Deviney, right there, yeah. And we have Plant Services Bob Palmer, Mayor Sherry Cantor is with us, and Councillor Tiffany McGinnis is with us as well. Did I miss anybody that might not be on my screen for some reason? Ben, Councillor Ben Winograd has joined us.
Yeah, as has Carol Blanks as well.
Oh, okay. Welcome, Councillor Carol Blanks. Call this meeting to order, and I will turn it over to Town Manager Rick Ledwith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everybody. As I think as the committee knows, we've been working closely with not only DEEP, but Waste Zero, particularly with the help of our Waste Working Group, which folks know is a subcommittee of our Sustainable West Hartford Commission. And we've been working to potentially extend the Morley Pay-As-You-Throw pilot program into the spring as we look at the potential of a town-wide program. As of tonight, we don't have a decision yet, but what we would like to do is have John Phillips, our Director of Public Works, provide us all with an update on the current pilot program, which I think we can all agree has been successful, particularly from a food waste perspective. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it over to our Director of Public Works, John Phillips, to provide us with an update. And then once he's done, we certainly can stop there and turn it over to the committee for any questions that you may have. Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you very much, Rick, and through the chair, very well. Thanks for having us tonight. Again, I'm John Phillips, the Director of Public Works. So I will, Morley School program, I'll go over some pilot highlights, and now that we really have 9 months of experience to the program. And again, for those who are listening in the audience or those on this call of the committee, the pilot program was a combination of two fronts to try to help reduce waste and try strategies that do actively or participate in the waste reduction process of households in West Hartford. So it was basically a unit-based pricing or a pay-as-you-throw program where residents put their waste into a bag, which is the unit, if you would. And then we also encouraged the separation of food waste, which by most accounts and audits of our waste, food waste makes up about 40% of the material we throw away at the curb week over week. So that goes some immediate highlights that we learned over the last 9 months, and very, very impressive numbers. We recycled over 100,000 pounds of food scraps in the last 9 months, an impressive number. According to those who study this material and the experts behind these types of program, we had about a 48% participation rate throughout the pilot program. We had peaks of over 50% at certain points in time, but it's 40 as an average of 48%. We think is a very good number, and we're told that it's the highest participation rate for similar pilots in the nation. And so this Morley School neighborhood really performed and took the waste challenge, if you would, as we called it, throughout the pilot period seriously, and really tried to see if they could change their household waste management practices and separate foods and other types of recyclable material. We did do waste audits, actually looked at trash that was generated from households in this neighborhood, and after some of the data based on those audits, we discovered that 26% of the trash was in fact food waste from the homes that we examined. 19% was other types of recyclables, and then about 13% of the items we discovered could have been or had been either donated. We're talking about materials like textiles, toys, and other types of electronic goods that could be pushed off and out of the waste stream. but ultimately it showed a reduction in waste from the homes that did participate in the program, which proves to be successful overall. 90% of the feedback from the participants was positive. Comments like, we had no idea how much food we throw away, or our trash has definitely decreased, and I never composted before, and I think it was very easy, thank you. Just some basic comments, but we have pages, Catherine Bruns, who's been my lead person, if you would, helping coordinate a lot of the programming of this pilot, has pages of positive comments, and that's where we get the data point of 90% of the feedback has been very positive. So the pilot clearly demonstrated that the two-prong approach, a unit-based pricing program and separating our food waste, can significantly reduce trash. And certainly those are efforts that we want to encourage as we continue to move forward and look at ways and look at solutions that bring our waste management practices into a more sustainable methods for the long term, not short term, but like a generational change. So next steps, as Rick indicated, we are actively, like every day this week, having conversations with DEEP. We had many conversations last week with DEP officials and the Waste Zero consultants who are helping all the municipalities in the state of Connecticut discover new ways to be more sustainable with their waste. But we have not come to a full green light, if you would, on extending the pilot program. We hope to the next 24 hours or early next week, which is fine if that happens. We're prepared to continue the pilot program further and through the spring period, so we can take advantage of the great work that the Sustainable West Hartford Waste Working Group is really gearing up to do, and engage in the community and talk about and educate their neighbors and their peers, and have many opportunities to engage with the community about just different practices in waste management. We're ultimately educating the community about reducing our waste and having less of an impact on the state's waste energy infrastructure, or the overall impact on the state having to send a large amount of our trash out of state. So that's the basics of the program. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm sure there should be a few related to the program, and I think it's important for this committee. Some of the other work that Public Works has been doing in relation to trash management. We did go out to bid with an RFP process for disposal of our waste. Happy to report we're nearing the end and signing a contract with an extension with, well, it's a new contract, but we have been with Covanta since 2012, but we'll be remaining with Covanta with our trash for the foreseeable future. Basically, it'll be ultimately a 9-year contract with Covanta, so our waste will go to the waste to energy facility in Bristol. And we got a very favorable market rate price. Actually, it's below market rate. We'll be paying less for trash this July. We'll be paying $95 a ton than we currently pay. $97.60 is what we currently pay for waste disposal. A lot went into that RFP process and a lot of discussions. So we're very happy that Covanta stepped up with a very impressive bid price. But it's important to note that the other bids they received were well over $100 per ton. So there was definitely a big gap between low and high. Talking with Covanta, one of the biggest drivers is that the facility relies on direct hauling waste, and we're a direct haul municipality, meaning our trucks leave the neighborhood, go directly to the plant, dump, and then come back. That was important to them to keep that for their plant efficiencies and not have to get into long haul trucks, which are long tractor trailer trucks carrying waste. And that would give them problems to try to replace our tonnage that we do bring to the facility. These facilities do rely on the tonnage we bring them, certainly not solely on our tonnage, but collectively the tonnage, because that waste is broken down, burned, and they do create an energy on the back end of their business model. So all the things played well for us, and we've got a very favorable price for the next several years. And the price increase on that is about 3% per year. One of the positives about going through a trash RFP process like this, we'll know what we pay for trash 9 years from now after we sign this deal, which is very good. It gives us consistency from a very reliable resource in Covanta Energy Solutions. So we're very pleased to announce that. Again, I'll open up for any questions on this particular topic. If not, I have other Public Works updates I can give.
Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. John, thanks for that. A couple questions. Wasn't going to ask this one until the very last sentence of your statement, is that the 10-year contract, and we've got a favorable bid for the new lower bid coming up in July. The 10-year contract, you know what we're going to pay. If trash in the future has new avenues, let's just say China opens up again for potential waste and such, or whatever, new technology, is there a provision in the contract that we can go out to rebid and potentially grab some of those savings if in fact they happen in the 10 years?
Great question, Councilman Zanowitz. Yes, the contract is broken on 3-year increments. So every 3 years there's a renewal. So
Okay.
Essentially it's a 9-year contract. I know I said 10, but it covers certainly the next decade. But on paper, it's a 9-year contract. Every 3 years there's a renewable to look at that. And that was considered, that very question was considered when we put the RFP out there. Because in Connecticut and probably the greater Northeast area, there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty year over year what's going to happen with trash. I think things will happen legislatively as well as innovation. Whether it will cost less, I don't know. I struggle to find a cost-effective environmental program out there. Most things cost money, even doing it a different way. But we're confident it's a good contract. But it is broken up in 3-year increments to give us that out if we need it.
All right, great, thanks. And then the other one is that you talked about the pilot program and trying to extend it, and I understood that, but also there's the potential for a grant for the entire town, right? And now those are two different things, maybe for everyone's edification in the public view.
Great. That's another great question. I'm sorry. So I apologize if I wasn't clear on that. So yeah, so the extension really is to not lose the momentum from the 300 plus 50, 350 homes that have really been participating week in and week out over the last 9 months. And so that extension allows that program to continue to mature and residents to stay with what they know and not break the habits they've developed, and maybe bring in some more of their neighbors to try it out and realize that it's not that difficult to be transformational in the way we manage our household waste. But that period of time in the spring will be a period of time where we'll try to build a much larger, broader grant program and make applications with the DEEP and the Sustainable Material Management Group that's managing these grants. And the idea is to create a much larger grant for a town-wide program that really takes that step forward in introducing a pay-as-you-throw program and food waste collection on a town-wide basis. Certainly a program like that will be a little bit more comprehensive, a lot more to learn and understand the way it would fit and feel within our community. There would be mandates to it, meaning we would need everybody to really participate in real time as if it was not a pilot program, so we can understand and bring in that data to help really to help most of you on the council to make an informed decision on what is the best approach for material management. This whole topic of waste material management, this is the most we've talked about waste in the last 34 years, or if not longer, when town of West Hartford decided to privatize its collection services. So Father Time's caught up to us, and this is what we're talking about right now.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Zdanowicz, and thank you, John, for that explanation. I think, Catherine, you have a question?
And I have a question too, Barry, when you have a chance.
Oh, sorry.
Let Carol go first. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank
Councilor
you.
Blanks, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Walters. So first of all, I want to thank you, John, for such an informative report out. And you're absolutely right. I've learned so much about waste management. I think I'm like a junior expert, but thank you. So, and I'm happy to hear about the positive feedback from all of those that participated in the pilot. So it's like a glowing report, right? That everyone felt really good about participating. But I'm curious about perhaps a small percentage, any negative response, any lessons learned that we picked up along this pilot that perhaps you or Catherine could share?
I'll share on it. So, Carol, great question. And if I can bring it back a little bit, certainly I started this evaluation of our trash in 2016 and made attempts to engage the community about what solutions there are to do this. And not much has changed since then from the negative standpoint of those who would just not wanting this to be the solution. I think we've grown though a lot in the last 5 or 6 years. I think more and more people definitely recognize that the state of Connecticut, or even the nation as a whole, we have a waste management issue that we need to contend with as a local community, as a state, and maybe even as a region. But I think a lot of people still struggle that the unit-based pricing and food separation is just not the right solution. And because of my studies, I don't know if there's many other options out there that really hones in on the effort to reduce the volume of waste that we send to an incinerating plant or a landfill, and really reduce it and change our household habits where we take the materials that just don't belong in a bag or that would be sent to incineration or landfill. And there are different means to dispose of those items. And when I say dispose of, I don't mean throw out, but dispose of and move on to something else. Divert, right? The meaning of diversion, like electronic waste, textiles of all grades, whether it's a ripped up shirt, well-used undergarments, or just a brand new shirt that you don't like anymore and you want to move on. There are plenty of outlets for textiles, our draperies in our homes, things like that, if we're changing things like that out. C&D products, construction demolition, folks who do home improvement projects on their own, or maybe have a contract to do some small projects, but tell a contractor, I'll throw out this stuff, I'll get rid of that. And that happens regularly. We get those questions all the time. Obviously, we talked extensively about food waste, which is a major part of our food. And I don't think anybody on this call, this meeting, or even within the community would ever go downstairs in their basements and throw their food waste in their furnace, because you would probably put the pilot light out, because food just doesn't belong in a fire. It lowers the BTUs. It just, again, it's not the right process for food when you can make food with technologies in the state of Connecticut from a food base, and you can bring it all the way down to an energy, and then right back to a compost that goes back out into our soils for enriching our farmlands and et cetera. And that's exactly what happens with food waste. Electronic waste, anything with a plug, there's areas to bring those materials, coffee makers, toaster ovens, computer screens, TVs, et cetera, et cetera. These are all things that wind up in our barrels, out of maybe lack of knowledge, lack of education, or quite frankly, sometimes just not caring what I should do with the material. So that's really what we're going through and what this pilot's showing. But the negativity is just probably Public Works telling me how to do my garbage. But we're telling you how to do the garbage because we have a goal and a mission. And the goal is to be not be wasteful with the finite tax dollars that you give Public Works. And we make sure we maximize the materials that we send throughout the system and maximize the value of the materials that we do get out of the really end of life real trash that does have to end up at incineration or landfill. I hope that's a long-winded way to answer your question, Carol.
No, thank you so much. Through you, Barry. Thank you so much, John. That's very informative and certainly educational for a number of our listening audience and a number of us who take many of the things that you just stated for granted. So thank you for that. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councilor Blanks. And I just before I turn it over to Catherine, I think it's silly to say, but important to note that the trash doesn't just disappear magically once it reaches your curb. So we have someplace it's got to go. Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Catherine Divini, Energy Specialist for the town. So following on to what you said, and I wanted to pick up on, John mentioned the favorable pricing that we received on our trash contract. And as your energy specialist, I feel compelled to say, because I say it all the time on the energy side, the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. So the same thing with the trash. even though we've received favorable pricing, if we don't produce the trash, we don't have to pay to dispose of it. So I will just throw that out there because as your energy specialist, I focus on not using the energy. And I think we should be doing the same on the waste side, which is what unit-based pricing, one of the things that it's all about. The other thing I just wanted to say briefly, and you've been talking about some of the feedback received. I would just encourage this group to hear directly from the residents themselves on both sides of the coin, the positive feedback and the negative feedback, rather than, talk amongst ourselves or, even through the waste working group. Hear from the residents themselves, the ones who like it, what they have to say, even the ones who don't. And I think the educational efforts can address some of the misinformation and some of the negativity. But I would encourage us to listen to the residents directly. Thank you.
That's great, Catherine. Thank you. And I know personally, Councillor McGinnis tells me the pros and cons of her participation in it almost regularly.
Yeah.
Don't plead the fifth. So I don't see any other hands up. Does anybody else have any questions? No? All right.
Barry,
Thank you.
I got a few other items on public works that might be of interest for the group.
We'll go ahead and return back to you and take it away.
Okay. So just to recap, January, really in the world of public works, January's and February, but we're in the winter, and so snow and ice control is usually top of mind. Minor activity this past month, most notably the January 6th and 7th snowstorm, where we did receive 10 inches of snow. But public works handled it well. It was a long duration event, and our crews, it's important to note that our crews stayed with the entire event. We were well over 27 hours of active working. And it's also important to note for those who may not be familiar with how public works is structured, we're not a split shift crew. It's one crew that comes in and stays throughout until the storm is done and the town is cleaned up. Over the last month, we did go through about 2,600 tons of salt for approximately 8 snow and ice events. So to put that in relationships, we had several ice events recently this past weekend. We had another ice event almost 6 or 7 days prior to that. Ice events really take its toll on our salt volumes that we have to use because it's a constant repeat. And those storms unfortunately happen during daytime hours. Traffic still moves at a heavy clip, even in storms like that. People need to get places or expect to get places. So that explains probably the higher volume than normal that you would use for a normal 8-inch time, period of snow, 8 events in 1 month. But 2 of those were pretty significant icing events that we had to manage. Just go through my notes, sorry. Public Works is back to a little bit topic on trash. Public Works will be submitting a general permit for a municipal solid waste transfer station, working with a state contract, environmental service contract. Larerio Engineering is helping us through that process with DEEP. And what that is really applying to upgrade our permit at the current recycling center. We're upgrading it to be more of a general permit so we can take in other types of materials that we're currently not permitted to receive. Those other types of materials would be like bulky waste, oversized waste. We will be able to take food waste under this permit. We'll be able to receive C and D materials, which I talked about for home improvement projects that people take on themselves, and any other number of small diversionary or waste type products. That general permit will allow us an umbrella, if you would, to be officially permitted to take those materials down at Brixton Street. And in unison with that, and working together side by side with that, and working with Larerio, we'll be developing an RFP for design, engineering, specifications, and construction management to remodel the transfer station to make it flow better for residents to use. Again, increase the footprint for those materials to be dropped off, bringing in the infrastructure needed for some of those materials. And basically, we're talking about large open-sized containers that can receive that material. So we'll be doing that in the next coming weeks, getting that RFP in the street so we can move that project along. Also, we're still in the process, very involved process, and making progress on it. We're still working with DEP to permit, to receive our permit to cap and close the landfill, our historical landfill that has never been officially capped or closed to date. So we're meeting all DEP regulations, and the engineering firm that we are working with to submit that permit, we're just going back and forth on Q&A and answering these questions so they can be comfortable with approving our permit to move forward on closing the landfill. Again, capping the landfill is an important improvement to the area that has a significant environmental exposure to town if we leave the landfill uncapped. It is pothole season. Public Works crews are out every day attending to potholes by both citizen requests as well as our proactive inspections. It's safe to say the pothole season is a little earlier than normal, due in part to the ice storms we had recently, and there really is no hard frost in the ground. And so the ice storms that we had recently and the plowing activity we had just exacerbates poor road surfaces and breaks open the potholes. And obviously ice is the biggest culprit of creating a pothole. And we certainly had a lot of ice in that 10-day spell where we were below sub-freezing weather. But in between the sub-freezing weather, in general, though, the weather has been moderate this winter, and it has provided Public Works the opportunity to stay super productive in between snow events. And we've been taking projects on that would normally reserve for early spring, like tree hazard maintenance, catch basin rebuilds and maintenance. And we've been really tackling most of those projects and giving us a good head start so we can maybe move into bigger projects this spring by getting that stuff out of the way now. And that's it for this month's Public Works report. Happy to take any questions on those topics or anything that this council would like to hear from Public Works.
Are there any questions for John? Okay, hearing none and seeing no hands up, I will turn it back over to Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda, we have a sustainability update, and I will, through you, Mr. Chairman, turn it over to Catherine Deviney, our energy specialist, to give us an update on this month's sustainable activities. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Catherine Deviney, energy specialist for the town. So we just had a short report, a couple of pages this month. I gave you some highlights on what the Sustainable West Hartford Commission's working groups are up to, with our next meeting coming up on February 22nd. And any of you are welcome to attend those meetings. The Land Care Working Group is really having some deep conversations with the town of Boulder, Colorado, and looking to bring something similar to their Cool Boulder initiative to West Hartford. That group is also working hard on developing draft language for a pollinator-friendly community resolution, which is one of our Sustainable Connecticut actions. And you'll see that come in front of this committee in a couple of months' time. The Energy Working Group and this is one of the things I wanted to highlight, on February 6th, we're having the kickoff information session for a 20-week intensive educational smart power energy campaign, which is focused on educating residents about incentives and tax credits and the installation process for either or both solar and battery storage for residential homes. So that kickoff presentation is either in person or virtually next Tuesday. I attached a flyer and the program website. So anything that you all as town councilors with your outreach, your reach into the community can do to help publicize that event, that would be great. I think you've heard enough about the Waste Working Group. So I just wanted to let you know that the commission also has a new communications working group, which is working to support all of the commission activities. And we recently had a pretty long, extensive meeting with some of the different departments in town hall, IT and the town manager's office, our public relations department, to kind of discuss how we all could work together and promote some of the group's initiatives. Another thing that I'd like to call to your attention specifically is CROG, the Capital Region Council of Governments, has just released a draft priority climate action plan that both myself and Bernie Pelletier, who's the head of our Sustainable West Hartford Commission, we were on the advisory committee for. They have just released that draft, and they have asked us to request if we could see if our local leadership and or counselors would review that draft and give feedback on it from a counselor perspective. So I've included in our summary a link to the PCAP, and if you have any comments, you can either email them to Kyle Shield at CROG, who's heading up that planning process. There are also a couple of public information sessions, which were also included at the back of the update. Just a little mention on Sustainable Connecticut. I'm in charge of putting together the town's application for, we're going for gold level certification, and that's going to be due in August. It's a big endeavor collecting information from all different departments on specific actions and documenting them and uploading all that into a very transparent web portal. There are several new actions in the program which were added this January, which the town already qualifies for, so that's some good news. And then I just wanted to give you a heads up that there are several actions that I'm collaborating on right now with different departments and different commissions, which will probably make their way in front of this committee before they move to town council for action between now and August. So just to give you a head up, I mentioned the pollinator friendly community resolution. And then we might also be looking at some language regarding exterior light fixtures and new construction about being dark sky compliant. So those are just a couple of examples. There may be a few other things. Our electric charging equipment community plan is in final draft form. So John, Public Works, and I and some other people have been collaborating on that with Stantec Consulting. And then Catherine wanted to let you know that food waste diversion, we continue our food waste diversions efforts in the schools, and Norfelt is the latest school to come on board. They're overcoming some of their challenges with setup, but the school seems really excited about it, and they have a lot of volunteer support from their PTO. And then finally, my last bullet on this month's report, we are going to be resubmitting our DPW solar project for Eversource's non-renewable energy, non-residential renewable energy solutions program. The reason I mentioned this to you guys is it's getting harder. The demand for installing solar projects is far higher than the availability of installation capacity. At the state legislative level, there are caps, restrictive caps on the amount of solar that can be installed annually. And so I mentioned this because the last time we submitted this project in August, we got put on standby and then denied. There's a huge project queue for solar projects, non-residential solar projects. And this round in February, we're going to be submitting again, but we are again not guaranteed that we will get in because the projects will fill up and the cap will be reached. So in your capacity as counselors, you might have more pull, or you might have some friends at the state legislature, but one thing that's going to be on the legislative agenda is looking at those restrictive caps that limit the deployment of renewable energy in our state. So I just mentioned that to you because we're feeling the impacts of this at the local level, not being able to install the solar projects that we want.
Thank you, Catherine. Actually, I have a quick question, or maybe
Sure.
not quick, but that cap, is
Yeah.
it first come, first serve, or are there certain criteria that they are looking for that before it becomes a first come, first serve type of thing?
They've tried it several different ways, actually. They have done first come, first serve. With the Eversource programs, there are, you have to make sure you have all the pieces. And they haven't added additional equity criteria or anything like that, like they do at with some of the federal grants. They haven't added that to the Eversource incentive programs yet. But yeah, usually they tried it first come, first serve, and the program filled up, I kid you not, in like the first 20 minutes the portal was open. So now this next round, they've said that any program that is submitted within the first 2 weeks will be awarded on a lottery basis.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, they've tried it several different ways. And this is one particular program. There are various different pots of solar projects, and each one kind of has a different cap. So I'm not up to speed on all the different caps and things like that, but it is an issue, and it is one that is being discussed and looked at the state level.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that info. Are there any other questions?
I have a quick question, Chairman Walters.
Yes, Councilman
Through
Blanks.
you. Catherine, I'm curious, how many attempts has the town, I guess, made and we were closed out?
For solar incentives, this is the first project that we've had to reapply several times for. Yeah, this is the most recent. We haven't, the last solar project we did was the installation on Town Hall roof. And I believe that was back in 2020 or so. So this is the first time. This will be the third time. This will be the second time going back, and I'm crossing my fingers, but it's not guaranteed that we'll get in this time either.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Blanks. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Rick, what is next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have Mr. Palmer, who I had asked Bob to update the committee on a couple of items this evening. First being the Elmwood Community Center, the new Elmwood Community Center architect search. We are getting close to awarding a contract there. And then also, the council will recall about 18 months ago, supported the purchase of the property located directly across from the Public Works campus on Brixton, two pieces of property on Brixton and Oakwood. And Bob has uploaded a map of our potential plan for that new site. One of the things we had talked about 18 months ago was moving the animal control facility from where it is right now, which is deep into the Public Works campus, and moving it up close onto Oakwood with easier access for folks whose pets are staying at the control facility. So you'll see that in the plan as well. And Bob can give us an update on both of those things. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I will pause there and turn it over to Mr. Palmer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob Palmer, Director of Plant and Facility Services. And as Rick said, I'll focus on those two specific projects tonight. There's really nothing else in my report that's changed. So update on the new Elmwood Community Center. So last month, I think I talked to you that we were asking for 3 architects to submit formal proposals to us out of the 6 that we had interviewed. We received those proposals. We met as a committee, and we have narrowed it down to our preferred selection. I'm working with purchasing right now. I'm making the notification. We'll probably make that notification tomorrow to the architect that we are going to award to, and then we'll let the other two firms know as well. So we'll probably release that next week publicly. So, and then the next step will be contract negotiation for that. So that'll take some time. It'll be since it is a large project, it'll be a complicated contract, and it'll take some time to develop that and to execute that. But I'll work with our purchasing folks on that. So that's the update there. So we're making some progress. So for the animal control facility, I did send 2 attachments with my report this month. The first one is the site plan for 705, what was 705 Oakwood Avenue, formerly the Cunningham Supply business. So we've taken our existing design that we were originally thinking about down at the current location for the animal control facility, and have brought that over to this new site, and it fits pretty well. So it changes the orientation of it a little bit, but it does fit onto the site very nicely. So you'll see that there's access from both Oakwood Avenue and Brixton Street into this the proposed location for the animal control facility. So it does fit onto the site very nicely, and it actually gives us, the site is big enough, it gives us extra space. So currently there's still a building in the way right now, so we're working on that, working with on the design of the demolition. So there are some environmental issues, the typical suspects of lead and asbestos with that building. There were some previous environmental issues with that piece of land too. So we could possibly see some additional issues as we begin that process, but we are deep into that process of the design. They've been out there sampling and beginning to put that together. So there is one component of the existing structure that we are thinking about trying to save, and that's the large 2-bay garage. The police department recently purchased a very large, almost like an RV kind of satellite office kind of vehicles. It needs a large parking spot. This is kind of a nice fit for it, and that part of that building is actually in pretty decent condition. So we're thinking about trying to salvage that and utilizing that for the police vehicle storage there. So the other structure that sits on this property currently is a warehouse building, and it's about 10,000 square feet. So we've had some very preliminary conversations with police and fire about possibly converting that into a public safety training facility. That's one of those things that they've been talking about, and we're currently working on the study with Tecton and looking at that issue. That could possibly be a good solution for us. So we're exploring that. We've had initial conversations with both police and fire about that. They think it's a good idea, so we're going to pursue that and see how it flushes out for us. So that's really the site plan is what we think we're gonna what we think is going to happen right now. So subject to change, but this is again very preliminary, but this is where we're headed. So additionally, I gave you some details about the program for the animal control facility. So our current facility is about 1,000 square feet, and really it was built in the 1970s. It's really a cinder block building with a roof and indoor and outdoor kennels. It's got the basics of heat, a restroom, a small office, a little bit of storage. It's very utilitarian. Was what was done back then, and it's obviously it's 50 years old at this point, so it's out of date. The state of Connecticut in the last few years has enacted new regulations concerning animal control facilities. And this program that we've developed for this new animal control facility reflects all those changes. So this new facility that we're looking at right now is about 5,000 square feet. So it's 5 times the size. It also accommodates a lot of different types of animals, and it also meets a lot of these new regulations. So I'm going to walk you through real quickly some of the highlights of it, what the major components are. Again, we've worked with the police department, the animal control people, with our architect, along with our staff, and developed this program for the building of what is going to be in this building and what it does and how it serves the needs of the animal control staff and the residents. So it will have a formal entry and lobby. Right now, there's nothing like that in there. It will have public restrooms that are ADA compliant. It's going to have an office for 2 people. It'll have 10 dog pens that have both indoor and outdoor facilities for the dogs. It's going to have a lot of storage. It'll have a dedicated custodial room. At this point, we don't have that for that. It'll have an animal kitchen. So this is a requirement from the state, and that's for the preparation of food for different animals, so that it's done in a clean environment and a safe environment. It'll have a proper food storage area separate from the kitchen. It'll have formal mechanical rooms and electrical rooms as well. This building is going to have both heating and cooling. That's a requirement in the state regulations. So the current building has heat, and then we have fans for ventilation, but this will have all the modern kind of building HVAC systems. So there's also going to be 3 isolation pens with their own indoor and outdoor areas, and a separate area that's for taking in animals that might have been exposed to different types of situations or viruses. So that is another requirement. It's going to have a lot of area for general storage. It's going to have what's called a cattery. So that's for cats. So that's like a cat condo kind of situation. So I think it's about 15 or 16 kind of cages for cats kind of stacked on top of each other in one specific room. But it'll also have a cat isolation area, very similar to what the dogs have. Again, the cats will have their own separate entrance. So that's obviously cats and dogs don't always mix together well. And then one of the other features is a very large multi-purpose room with storage. And that's really going to be a space where the public comes in and for adoptions and other types of situations where they can come in, meet the animals, and do that process. Right now, we don't have any type of capabilities of doing that. So those are some of the kinds of the features of the new animal control facility. I'm happy to take any questions or comments from anybody.
And I also publish a lot.
You're muted, Barry.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the info, and I'm glad the cats are getting their own space. Not to start a fight between cats and dog people, but glad they are getting their space. I do have a question. The environmental concerns on that property, do we have an idea of how extensive they may be or not extensive?
Yeah, there was a phase 1 study done as we bought the property, or previously before we bought the property. So there was some environmental contamination, some oil tanks, I think, that had leaked. So the property has a long history of being industrial and down in the industrial area. And based on those uses and what was going on there, it looked like it was home heating oil or diesel that had leaked. And it was addressed and cleaned up. So that was, it just was noted in that. And the other environmental issues are the normal types of things that we see with buildings. So lead paint, some asbestos, so those types of things.
Okay.
So I don't think it's not 100% known what's there, but those are based on the uses and the other studies that were done previously on that's what we know. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Bob? Okay, hearing none. I guess we can move on to future agenda items there, Rick? Is that what I see next?
We will continue to keep you updated, committee updated on our progress with the extension of the grant. Pay as you throw grant program, but outside of that, March meeting, we'll have to talk more about that meeting because now we're heading into the budget cycle. So we'll have to plan around the budget and presenting the public works and plant facilities budgets to this committee. So that'll probably take up our March meeting, but we'll work on the timing of that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
But
Sounds
certainly
good.
any items that you would want to add it to the next meeting, we're certainly open to that as well.
Okay. Well, do we have anything from anybody? that they'd like to share, or are we ready to adjourn? Okay, it's dinner time. I guess we all want to adjourn. All right, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for joining us, both in person and for those who are watching. Have a great evening.
Have a
Thanks,
great evening.
everyone. Take
Thank
care.
you, everybody. Good night.